I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Downtown Development Authority Board. It's Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, and it is 6:30 p.m. Could we have a roll call and determination of quorum, please?
Chairperson Burgess,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Caruso,
Here.
Secretary Laurent,
Here.
Board Member Campbell,
Here.
Board Member Medina,
Here.
President Rutt.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, approval of minutes. A, approval of DDA regular meeting minutes of January 21st, 2025.
Move to approve the DDA regular meeting minutes, January 21st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number B, special meeting minutes, February the 3rd, 2025.
Move to approve the special meeting minutes, February 3rd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. As we move on to approval of the agenda, I think everyone will find in front of you, we have an agenda item to add, that's 8E, budget amendment, streetlights. So if you could just make that little notation there in your, on your agenda, so we could have a motion to accept that.
Move to approve the agenda with the item of, with the addition of item 8E, budget amendment, streetlights.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to call to the public. The DDA welcomes comments related to the work and spirit of the DDA on non-agenda items. Each person wishing to address the DDA board shall be afforded an opportunity to do so. When recognized, please give your name and address and direct your comments to the chair. Comments on the agenda items may be allowed upon the calling of the item. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or as allowed by the board chair.
Maybe a young man would like to introduce himself.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Hi.
Hello, my name's Makshith Isam from Troop 125, and I'm just here to observe.
Closer to the mic.
Hello, I'm Makshith Isam from Troop 125, and I'm just here to observe and just learn how this system kind of works. That's it.
Well, welcome.
Yep.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for hosting this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to item number 6, consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are approved by one vote. A, financial reports, page 6, and B, snow removal contract budget and payment, page 16.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, financial matters. A, bill approval. This does require a roll call, page 21.
Move to approve the disbursements in the amount of $115,525.27 for January 2025.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Caruso,
Yes.
Secretary Laurent,
Yes.
Board Member Medina,
Yes.
President Rutt,
Yes.
Chairperson Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, new and old business. A, Village Capital Improvement Fund, page 26.
Madam Chair, if I could outline the agenda item that's before everybody. I know everybody looked at their packet in diligence and, oh, sorry, I'll speak closer to the mic too. See, I should have learned from you, young man. What's in the packet is a rundown of the beginnings of taking action on something that's been discussed now for almost 2.5 years, from November of 2022. Most of you that have been on the board will recall that there was companion resolutions that were passed. They're in the packet here. I could scroll through and find them, but all of you have seen them. Those companion resolutions were an effort from a joint committee of this board and the Village Council seeking what has been famously called the 75-25 agreement, and so we're all very familiar with that. What hasn't happened since that time period is an enactment of process and the nuts and bolts of how this is actually going to work. The council, with the great leadership of our good council president, Ms. Rutt, who we applaud every time she's at a meeting, they have formed an ad hoc committee that would begin the process of identifying capital improvement need in the district, within the district that this would apply to. So just for summary, I know they're live streaming this, just so you're aware and the public is aware. On TV, our great partner, Orion Neighborhood Television, when there's a holiday, of which there was yesterday, moving a more important meeting than ours, in this case the Township Board, that takes precedence from the live TV, but we are being streamed on the YouTube channel. We did have several people contact us today just to make sure that they understood how to do it. So there are people watching. So for those benefits, let me just walk you very quickly through the memo that was provided and what the approach is and what's the work that we need to do as a board and what we need to consider. So the 75-25 plan, the language of that was pretty clear. It was written by legal counsel that also involved the DDA legal counsel. At its core, it's an effort to take future tax revenues, captured tax revenues, as the resolution states, and divide those future revenues 75% into a designated capital improvement fund and 25% to remain with the DDA for its general operating budget. That operating budget is everything that we do under our plan. It would be improvements of our own, it would be our staff expenses, it would be our event expenses, the things that we do for the purposes of the TIF plan. The resolutions are clear in several regards. So let's talk about what's clear first. What's clear first is that we're creating, and we've all agreed to create, a 75-25 split of future tax captured revenue. What's also clear in the plan? It's clear in the plan, the language of the resolutions are that we're at all times to adhere to Public Act 175 from 1975, which is eventually amended by PA 57. Those are the legal statutes, including 125.4201. If I put my attorney brain on and I spit all of the legalese at all of you, the resolutions are very clear that whatever happens with this, we are to be in complete compliance with the statutory enabling of who we are as a DDA. So that's very clear that we can't violate the law that created us and manages us. It's also very clear that this fund is to be allocated so that we can collaborate on capital improvement projects. So what else is very clear in the resolutions? In the resolutions, it's very clear that the types of improvements have to qualify as public facility improvements. Now, why is that important? Because the law for DDA doesn't allow us to spend money, as we know, we're not supposed to spend it on flower pots and parades, even though we can spend some of that on things like the Halloween parade. It can't be a focused expenditure of capital, meaning the actual capital outlay of the TIF. We've gone through this in training recently, right? We all talked about this. So this is kind of rounding this back. So it has to be a public improvement, a public facility improvement. So what are those types of things? It's a wide range of things that's in our TIF plan to talk about all kinds of things that would be public facilities. It would be sidewalk improvements. It would be improvements to the dam. It would be stabilization of the bank of the Paint Creek. It would be electrical improvements. It would be water and sewer improvements. It would be facade improvements. It would be all the things that all of you and boards before us have done 100 times over. What is it not? It can't be to support the police budget. It can't be to pay the DPW guys to take training. It can't be to buy new safety equipment for a contractor. It can't be for any of those types of things. It has to be for public facilities. So those are the things that are very clear in these resolutions. It's for bricks and mortar type infrastructure projects that are identified as a need within the DDA district that qualify and satisfy our statutory requirement to continue to be who we are without getting in trouble. That 75% of our future revenues will be captured into this fund that would be created. So now let's go into the stuff that's not as clear. And I've started to identify some of it in the memo, and I've just got the agenda up here. We'll get through to some of these things that are requested actions. So what's not as clear? Okay, how does this work? So there's been a lot of communication in public between council members. I'm looking at you, Ms. Rupp, but it's not between you and I, but like council members and others that have said, this is money that's just to be transferred to the village. That's completely false. One is by law, it can't be just transferred to the village, because that would be violating Public Act 57 of 2018, all of the amendments. A DDA cannot, by law, just pass through money to its municipal creator, so it has to be a mechanism. So we can't just give the money to the village. What's the resolution say? The resolution says that the village will invoice the DDA. It's very clear, both resolutions are identical, the one the council adopted, the one this DDA adopted. So why is that a gray area? Well, it is a little bit in the sense of how do we do that? Like, is it just that our great clerk here sends us an invoice? Not so under the law. If we're going to adhere ourselves to the law, we would have a process for how a project would be identified, the capital would be spent, the village then would invoice for the money, not in a sense that they're McDonald's seeking payment for a Diet Coke, that they're our partner seeking collaborative payment of the money that's been set aside to do these joint projects. So the first order of business would be us to discuss that. And I don't want to take and usurp your authority as the chair, Madam Chairman, Ms. Burgess, but I really want to have us be thinking in like what are the things to start implementing this can we do tonight to move forward as efficiently as we can. So the first one is kind of the process of how are we going to do this. I put in your packet an agreement that was drafted that is called exactly that, the agreement between the Village of Lake Orion and the Lake Orion Downtown Development Authority regarding responsibilities and cost allocation for capital improvement projects. This agreement basically says everything I just said. It says that the village and the DDA passed resolutions. We would incorporate this into this agreement, so all that language is binding on all of us, and they formed a joint committee to review, approve, and recommend projects in the district. I think we can all agree that's what we're trying to accomplish. The DDA's created a capital fund account. This is something that we're going to talk about tonight, that we would designate. We've got X amount of dollars in an account to go towards these projects, and then we've reached an understanding on how to do this. Now, we haven't reached an understanding with the council yet. That'll come next. My recommendation tonight is the process is that we reach our own understanding of the law tells us to do this. Our executive director, who's both an attorney in this field and 30 years of experience in this field and has talked to Bob Davis, our attorney, and have done ad nauseum experience, let's follow the law. So what does the law say we should do? It's what this agreement says. So we incorporate the resolutions, meaning those become binding on us. We can't go, and these aren't renegotiations. This isn't like, oh, well, we're going to wink, wink at one section. Those are part of what we agreed to. Everybody agreed to, council too. We identify projects. The joint committee established for the purpose shall undertake and complete identification and selection of projects to construct public facilities. This language is directly from the resolutions. This isn't something I made up. This has already been passed through everybody's attorneys. And then in the agreement, the cost necessary for testing, oversight, or engineering a review would be borne by the village. Now, why is that? Well, these are presumably public infrastructure projects that would be sewer projects or road projects or things that they've identified in their capital improvement plan. And if there's outside ancillary cost, it wouldn't really be a responsibility of the DDA to do that. We would be contributing. So we would assume that they would, if the whole project with engineering and Gage and everybody else cost $100,000, that they would come to us and say, we'd like to use $100,000 towards this project. And it would be all included in there. We wouldn't break out that, oh, the $100,000 only goes to the bulldozer, but we still have $17,000 of engineering costs. This agreement would say, no. We're creating a fund for you to identify projects in cooperation, and then you would create a project plan, and then you would ask for invoice. Remember, we said invoice under the resolution would invoice money. So we'd identify the projects and figure out how much they cost, and then the project management would be not on Janet and I. No offense, we're managing the lumberyard. It's enough. If these are public works related projects, then who better to manage those projects? We would cede control of that to Ms. Rutt's more than capable staff in the village. So if it's a sidewalk project, if it's a water project, we wouldn't inject. We would have to go hire an outside person to do that. Well, that's not smart. So this agreement says that we cede control of that to the village. So if the village is managing that project and it takes 3 weeks or 1 day or whatever, we would applaud and we would support and we would be behind them. But it gives them the ability to not be encumbered by having to come back and ask us for control or permissions. Approval of the TIF funds. So this is very clear that we would be responsible for funding our identified share of the project. So what if a project cost $1 million and we have $200,000 in this account? I'm just using fictitious numbers. That's fine. The committee could say, we're going to do $1 million project because we have a $600,000 grant and the village has an extra $100,000. And we think we can get $100,000 more from a different source. So we're $200,000 short. So we're proposing that we do this project and this account fund the $200,000. Completely fine. These don't have to be projects that are fully funded just out of the DDA funds. By law, that would be completely permissible. That's what this is. So a project plan would be identified. There would be certification that it's a public facility that doesn't violate the law in any way that would put us in any kind of jeopardy. And that project plan, again, which would be out of a joint committee. So Mr. Laurent, you might sit on that committee and you would say, I voted for that. I think it's the best thing we could do. And we would collectively and hopefully unanimously say, that's a great project. Here's the project plan. Ms. Burgess, could you present this to your board? We'd consider it and say, yeah, the $200,000, perfect. Let's do it. Let's hit a home run. Wes might be the manager. He's going to manage the project and off we go. That's what this very simplified agreement and process would do. Fixed cost to the DDA, we'd only be exposed to what's in that fund. Like, we wouldn't be exposed to if the project goes sideways or the $1 million project decides, they say, well, let's do 3 more streets because we got more grant money. We wouldn't be obligated for anything more than the approved project plan on a case-by-case basis. All of that is not to be combative. It's to be sane in how we would do this. We're going to create a fund with a certain amount of dollars in it. We're going to have cool projects that are identified. We're going to agree to make sure that let's just review it and get checked off approvals so that everything's compliant. And then we're going to cut checks because Sonia's office is going to send my office saying the project is ready to transfer the money, and we move the money out of the DDA. Guess what that does? It is 100% compliant with MCL 125.4201 and all of its subparts. That law is the law that we have to be compliant with fiscally in order to spend our TIF revenue capture on capital-based public facility projects. So if we do this, we're compliant with the law. I will fully disclose to you, none of this has been looked at by anybody other than me and Bob Davis and some other great legal minds that I know, just to make sure I wasn't crazy. And everybody says you've made it as direct and simple as you can be. So part 1 of tonight, and this is the longest thing on the agenda, I promise. Part 1 tonight, Madam Chair, I'll give it back to you, is discussion on the utilization of this approach. This approach has nothing to do with how much money is going into this account or how we're going to get there. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know that's a much more conversational issue. I won't say debated, but more conversational issue. So what's before you right now in this first step, Madam Chair, would be how do we feel about using this approach and adopting this agreement, which would then be passed to council for their consideration.
So I would just like maybe to open this up to some conversation. And maybe tonight we do not vote, but maybe we make a recommendation to our ad hoc committee to review this. And then we have more eyes. And why create an ad hoc committee if we're not going to use the ad hoc committee? And I'm not stalling, I'm not dragging our feet, nothing like that. But I just feel like that if we've taken the time to elect an ad hoc committee, that we need to value their input. And I think it's a better representation of the board. So that's my suggestion.
So I know that myself, Hank, and Matt are on the ad hoc committee, and we're talking about getting together this Thursday to get for a committee. We'll bring this on our docket. We'll look this over this Thursday, and we don't have to wait so long, because I know Hank's gone next week, I'm gone the week after, so if we get some stuff done Thursday, between our Michigan Main Street evaluation project, we can look it over then. That's kind of our thought process. But I think it makes sense to look it over before we make a vote. But it looks really good to me.
Teresa?
Yeah, I think there may have been one or two people who have said, oh, just give us the money. I think for most of us, the approach has always been, we understand that there's going to be a fund, and that the process, very similar to what you've outlined as, at least from the village's standpoint, that, yeah, there would be process. That's why we have wanted, why we're creating this joint committee to go through this process to recommend projects. I do agree with Chairperson Burgess. I feel like this is jumping ahead too far right now because we have just created this joint committee to start to look at these things. And I think by jumping ahead right now and approving something like this, it's almost trying to move faster than the committee that hasn't even met yet. Also, I would have to disagree a little bit in that you said this agreement is just about the process. It is not, because paragraph, the third whereas paragraph does talk about the money piece, which I will have to, you might not like me as much after this meeting. I would have to strongly disagree with that. I know you said we'll get to the money, but it is in this agreement. It says 75% deriving from annual increase with the district. I was on that committee from a village council standpoint. That was not the intent. It was from a baseline perspective. It's interesting, the PowerPoint in here, I actually created that for the village presentation. And I'm happy when we talk a little bit more about the money to outline the reasons why I very much strongly disagree with that statement or that section of this. But in terms of the process, I'm on board with the process of identifying the projects jointly. The process that you outlined, I'm on board with, but also agree with not wanting to approve any type of agreement right now because I think it is jumping ahead of what the heart and intent of this joint committee would be.
I would totally agree with you. We really haven't had time to sit down and go through it. We haven't met together as a team to look at it, and we need to do that before we take the next step. So to your point, we are pushing further ahead than we really need to be until we get some really eyeballs on this thing.
Anybody else have it? Do you have a comment?
I'm good.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, if that's the case, then a logical thing for my request would be is that a motion that would appoint the sitting members of the Budget Task Force, which would be Mr. Caruso, Mr. Laurent, Mr. Schell, as the DDA representatives on the ad hoc committee that they've created, because we haven't formally done that. So a motion to do that would allow all of us to meet on Thursday, and that would start this first phase of it going forward.
I'll make a motion to appoint Hank, Matt, and Sam to the ad hoc, what'd you call it?
Joint committee.
Joint committee? Well, you said budget.
Well, the budget committee
Yeah.
to the joint committee, yes. Second.
You have a second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, now let's talk about money. And Ms. Rudd is exactly correct. I would disclose to you, as I've disclosed to everyone, that you can put on a pretty creative legal brain around the way the resolutions were drafted. And you and I could very friendly debate this till the cows come home, and I could win and you could win. That being said, what was intended by the actions way back when was to try to create a revenue mechanism that would incorporate things like the Mosheri development and others into the project, right? So we're going to have this big revenue bump up going forward. What I think is maybe missed in some of it is not the intent of what those resolutions were, but the practical effect long term. And I think, to your point, Mr. Caruso, what the ad hoc committee and quite frankly our budget committee for the DDA does need to be thinking about is what is the long-term impact of this from our standpoint. It's a great impact to the capital improvement plan of the village, which everybody's extremely happy that there is one now, and they're moving forward with that. But what does it mean for us long-term? So I identified the alternative approach that I suggested to our good village manager, saying, well, we have actual known numbers, and then we have ad valorem numbers that are never collected in full. I only know this now because our outstanding clerk helped walk me through the process of preparing an annual report that we have to file with the state. So that annual report at the end of the year identifies how much money did you make, not how much was in the projected assessment rolls, not how much was projected that you should collect, not how much went in deferral, not how much is at the tribunal, it's how much revenue did you make. So we have those numbers. We have them for 22, 21, we have them for every year through 24. So in 22, you would say, well, and Ms. Rudd, I'm not arguing that we adopt this. I just want it from an information point so we all, and this would be the same presentation I would make to the council if invited, just so we all know like what we're dealing with. So if we took 1 month of 22, which is, we started this in December of 22, then you would say, well, 75% of a month of what we collected is $2,400. And if we took what we collected at 23 and what we collected in 22, the difference is 68,000, and we take 75%. So I have recommended to Mr. McClary, knowing that it's a subject of debate and quite possibly dispute, and we don't want to cause any dispute, we just want to have a full understanding of like the total consequences and cause and effect of everything. So if we just took what we collect, then it would say that to get us caught up for 24, that we would put $103,697 in a line item account that could be charged against for these projects that we would mutually agree on. Project plan gets developed, the cost gets developed, Sonia sends me an invoice, we do a PO, and everything goes great. If we were to use the more cumulative effect, that number would be $188,000. You think, well, geez, Matt, that's a big difference. Well, it's no different than your savings account. Instead of doing it, how much did I make this year in my IRA? Of course, you're trying to compound that, and you're compounding it going forward. Not that this is interest-based, but it's the same factor. So you're 75% of all of the capture for those years. Now, here's where I just want everybody to become acutely aware of where this leads. So right now, we don't have Mosheri on the rolls. We don't have a shared partnership at the lumberyard on the rolls. We don't have Jeff Schmidt's rehabilitated property at the Legion on the roll. We don't have his new building that he's going to break ground on very soon on the roll. We don't have a lot of things on the roll that are coming. So if we were to say, well, what if we were just to get a 5% increase in revenue every year? Not in the ad valorem charging, where there's this gap every year of like what we actually collect, but just what if it's we collect 5% more every year, which is in 24, it was $963,000. The report, and I applaud you, Ms. Rudd, it was a great report, the work you did back then, but the report with the spreadsheets, and I included it in the packet, shows that we would increase about $10,000 a year in revenue. Just in these years, we've already increased almost $170,000. We're not even there yet. We're not even into the why we did this. So if we just apply 5%, then in 2029, 5 years from now, we would collect in revenue, if we follow that, $1,230,000. That would mean a $300,000 input that year into this account. Well, that's fine, except it's 25% of our budget. And so when we add $300,000 to the $419,000 that we'll still be paying in debt service, and I know it'll be coming down a little bit, now we're at $700,000 of obligated capital. And if we maintain even status quo on our cost expenses to the village, which right now are, if everything were to go through, it's probably $240,000-ish. So now we're at $940,000. And then you add in your cost of staffing and administration and the fact that tonight we're doing a budget adjustment for utilities because we all live in Michigan and our utility cost is now going to be upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 for the DDA, which was not a year ago. It was more like $12,000 a year ago, and things have gone haywire. They're not going to change anytime soon here in Michigan. We do cost of inflation, we do all of those things and say we add that on. Just the cost, even if, say, Janet and I took a 10% pay cut, which isn't likely to happen, we would spend close to $300,000. So now we're at almost 1.0607 million. So all of the other things we would do as a DDA in this scenario, just by 29, would be limited down to about $100,000. Now, I'm not here arguing that that's a good or a bad thing. I don't care. You all hired me to deal with this, to manage us through that project, and to get some of this right-sized and fixed. I'm just here tonight to point out the fact that if you then go 5% more the next year, And we know that in this same time frame, we're likely to have upwards of a 20% increase, which is a blessing. It's a blessing for this community. But the math, by doing it as a cumulative, basing it off the base year, throws this into the $500,000 to $600,000 range within 8 years. It starts to become, where's this money going from a regulatory standpoint? Our public statutes that create us does not create us so that we can capture a bunch of money and pass it through. So, that being said, I'm not arguing we should do one way or the other, although I kind of am, right? Because I put it in the agreement and I put it on this slide. But I am here to say that there's consequences to this, meaning if we go full in with the capital improvement, which I have been saying to the village manager now since last April, that if we go full in with this 75-25, there's consequences to that. Meaning we have to change the way that we fund everything else, which means our admin costs, everything else changes. It just does. Because there's no way for us to stay compliant with our statutory requirements unless it does. It's one way or the other. So it's either a collaborative that we figured out, and we do a little bit here, and we do a little bit there, and we all kind of get together and we figure this out, or it's an all-in approach, and I will assure you that the budget that will be presented to you in March will look radically different. And I'm not doing that as a threat. I'm not doing it as in anything. I'm just doing it as a reality. You guys brought me in to be real. So that's what's before you, is a discussion on how do we want to approach this. And Madam Chair, I'll give you that wonderful discussion point back.
So I just want to, I'm going to restate my understanding of what you just said, and please at any point correct me if what I state is incorrect or I tend to veer off course. My understanding is if the 75% of future revenue can only be spent on public facilities or capital-based public facilities, and those monies, that commitment is agreed upon, and then the village presents the invoice and our partnership in that, then we release the money for that. That's great. But if we do this based on, and then our debt service, what we give for debt service, or our obligated debt service, is about $419,000, then really what we have done then, as each year continues, is we've defunded ourselves. And then there's no, I mean, I'm just trying to put it in very simplistic terms. We will defund ourselves. And if I understand it correctly, the money in the 75%, 25% split, that money can only be used, I'm going to say it again, can only be used for public facility projects, but we're not going to be able to continue at that point to give the amount we're giving for the debt services. So my question is, if that 75% split can only be spent on these public facility projects, they can't take that money and balance out their budgets, then when we say, listen, we can't defund ourselves, I mean, we have to pay our bills, so that means you're not going to get the money that you're used to getting for DPW or for police or for admin. So now how are they going to balance their budgets if they don't get what they're used to receiving from us? And how can we even run a program if we defund ourselves by giving them, am I stating this correctly?
You much more succinctly than I just did. It's the conundrum of what we're facing, is some very, very collaborative, perfectly intentioned community members that adore each other. Is we have a pot, we've got certain actions, buying a lumber yard, 75, we've just got certain things. Well, now how do we divvy up the pot so that we stay in compliance? And you're stating it correctly.
So all of our fighting over the verbiage or the deep discussions over what's right or what's wrong, the bottom line is, I don't think any of that really is going to be helpful at this point, because either we defund ourselves or they have to figure out how they're going to fund their budgets, because even with this 75%, they can't take that money and bolster their budgets when we have to say, sorry, by law, we can't just give all of this money and then not do what we're supposed to be doing with that funding. I mean, this is pretty serious. I didn't see whose hand went up first. Okay, go ahead.
So I think one of the pieces we're missing is that our tax revenues are going to increase, right? When these projects come on the tax roll, our tax revenues are going to increase substantially. So when we think about 75-25, you're still getting more. It's not a defunding, because when those things get added to the tax roll, there's going to be a substantial increase. Even with 75 being dedicated to this infrastructure fund, there's still a substantial increase to the DDA budget with the other 25%. When we look at the possible projections for the tax revenues for when all these projects, these different projects come on the tax roll. So
Because
I
the
don't.
whole thing grows, right?
Right. So I don't think it's entirely accurate to say we're defunding the DDA, because, we may feel a little bit of the squeeze in the short term, but really we're operating with a budget that we knew we were going to have back when the agreement was created. We knew we were going to have this budget, and it may feel tight in the short term, but once those properties, those developments start contributing to the tax roll, the amount is going to increase substantially. And this was the heart of the discussion. If you remember back, the whole defund the TIF, change the DDA, remove properties from the tax roll, all these things that were put out there, that was where this came from. Because when you look, the message to the public too was also, hey, if you remove these properties from the tax roll, yes, or from the TIF district, if you remove these projects from the TIF district, yes, the village gets an increase in the general fund, and the DDA loses money. But remember that about half, 90%, or what is it, 90, it's in my presentation, about half of what comes into the DDA is from non-village taxing authorities, right? Non-village tax authorities. And so by doing this agreement, which is why I strongly feel that it is based on a baseline, a base year, because then the message is, hey, actually the village has more money to invest in infrastructure projects with the 75 that's allocated from the DDA. There's more money that's available for these infrastructure projects than if we would have said, okay, we're going to exclude this property, this property, this property, and this property, these development properties from the TIF district. Because then the village is only getting half of what would have accumulated. So that's why I feel very strongly that the resolution was base year increase from there. And I do think we have to remember that the budget is going to increase substantially. It may, yes, it's going to require taking a hard look at the budget and how we spend, how, collaborating with the village, sitting down, having those conversations. It's not going to be one conversation. It's going to need multiple conversations of collaboration and coming to the table together and I think we've started moving in the right direction and thinking about an agreement with the DPW that we're charged for actual services instead of just here's a check for DPW services, but we don't know the actual cost. So I think we're moving in the right direction with those types of things, but it is going to require, sitting down and looking at the impact. But we have to remember that we're not defunding the DDA because tax revenue is going to grow, and the DDA is going to see a large portion of that still into the general DDA fund.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that there are going to be consequences.
Absolutely. Consequences can be good or bad.
Yeah, and when it comes to how much we end up giving in debt service, the village will not receive as much as they're currently receiving. There's no way that we're going to be able to continue to do what we do, giving them the same amount. So I just want everybody to understand that there will be consequences, and there will be hard looks, and there will be several conversations. But if it's a matter of whether the DDA can continue to do what we're supposed to be doing by law, or continue the amount that we're giving in debt services, we're going to do what we are required to by law.
Absolutely.
And the village will have to learn how to manage their budgets differently than depending on us for that amount in addition to the 75. So I just want everybody to be very clear that the decisions that are going forward, they're going to be there's going to be a change for all of us, not just the DDA, not just the village, but all of us. But the win-win will be, there will be additional monies for the infrastructure projects. But as far as day-to-day budgeting, we will probably end up be doing what several other communities are doing and just giving a percentage of that amount.
That was going to be my statement, I guess, or my concern, is that we are bound by PA 57, right?
Yes.
We are being funded by tax dollars, and we are responsible for ensuring that those dollars are spent according to the law. And I think we all see what is going on right now in our federal government and the loss of trust that the American people have had, you know, in the lack of government transparency and where's our money being spent. And so I am hyper aware that I want to make sure this body is always transparent and following the law and what our responsibility is for spending tax dollars, because we have a huge responsibility in that regard. And we have a huge responsibility to our community.
Yeah, we're not a pass-through.
No,
We
and
can't,
we
yeah.
have to make sure that is number one on my, we've all seen what's happening, and we don't want to be that. And we won't be. We
A
won't be.
question, is this,
We won't.
so say that, you know, we pass the
Talking
resolution.
to the mic so we can
So
hear
if we
you.
pass the resolution, or if we don't, or a lot of these are hypotheticals that we don't have actual numbers. I feel like if I could look at numbers and see what they would look like, but a lot of it we don't know yet. When you say that these are dire consequences, does this mean that if we make a decision within the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, that it can't be changed? So like, we do say we do move forward with 75-25, and then we realize, oh my gosh, we are defunding the DDA, we're not getting the services that we need to be able to give over in the overall debt fund. Can it not be changed in the future?
Yes.
Yes.
This is in
yeah.
perpetuity?
If I could, Madam Chair. So, great question. Fixing the capital improvement fund is really good for our village, it's really good for us. It hyper-focuses what we're really core supposed to do, which is we're supposed to build public facility infrastructure. So, it's really good. It's this short term, and Ms. Rutt, to your point, it's been suggested multiple times in other meetings amongst management that the timing stinks. Because if we were closer to something coming on board, the impact would be more absorbable. But directly to your question, what we're talking about is we need to settle pretty quickly on how we're going to assess which numbers we use, which is important, and me working with Ms. Stout to make sure that we've got the fund account created correctly, whether it's an existing one or a new one or a renamed one. And the reason for that is the ad hoc committee needs to get to work because we're in budget cycle. And so that's part one. Part two is every consequence we're talking about is the rest of our budget, meaning we would look at this and what we settle on in the short term, whether it's 103 or 188, I think Darwin's is at 170 something. You're right, we need to get a specific number. It's not breaking the bank, we've got fund balance, but that's where it comes from. So the next step for us from a critical standpoint would be how we address looking longer term. So typically, this DDA, no offense to anybody, has looked year over year and not looked at where are we going to be in 3 and 5 years. Well, now we do have to do that because we've got dedicated expense lines. One is a capital account, one is a debt service until we get that going. Because the lumberyard will take 3 years before that turns into revenue. So I hope that answers your question. It's a budget thing that we can change.
So it could be changed in the future,
Yeah.
okay, but yeah, that's.
If I could clarify, though, the resolution is for the life of the TIF plan. The 75-25 resolution is for the life of the TIF plan, which currently is set to expire in 2039.
And that part would be hard to undo. Like, once we say, this is how we're going to attack the numbers, here's how we're going to fund, here's the process. It's government, sorry. No matter how much we like each other, it's hard to undo those types of things. But our budget, as far as what Ms. Burgess is talking about, is very malleable, that we can fix things down the road.
Have we run the numbers out 10 years on a best guess of what's going to happen?
Well, come on, I thought it was pretty good running it to 29. We have not. In the work that the committee did prior, they did run numbers about 10 years. None of those numbers are anywhere near reflective of the actual reality of the numbers, so we can run them again. I think that's something, Mr. Laurent, you'd ask and say, Matt, bring that to the committee so we have actual numbers to work with.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm confused on this, maybe because it's 7 o'clock at night or whatever. The Model 1 and the Model 2. So my understanding was, well, I was brand new on the board then. I understood that it was when certain projects came online, like the Mosheri development, the Eman Center, that's what was going to trigger. I never realized it started in 2022. However, my understanding was that each year, whatever our increase was from the prior year, the increase, 75% went to the village, 25 to us. So I don't understand how Model 2 works.
So Model 2 is a base year. So the way our TIF works, remember in the training we said you've got a certain base year of capture, and then as it grows, we
1985.
capture that. So in this case, it would be the base year. You can't do 22 because we didn't pass anything until the end of the year. Calendar year 2, which is a whole distinction because we're on a June 30 budget cycle year. But aside from that, you would set a base year. And so in that case, it would likely be somewhere in between these two numbers that I'm showing on the screen. And the reason it would be in between is because you would either call equalization or we would just agree and say, let's set the base revenue from a base year standpoint at 840,000. I mean, we're just a random number. And then from that, it would be all the increases. So here's what I would suggest to you, Ms. Campbell and the board, and certainly for council's consumption. Ms. Rutt's probably right that this was intended to set a base year and have revenue captured. She's probably right. The reason she's probably right is this is in all the materials. It was not accurate in any of the
That's what I
materials.
understood.
It was all the materials. What's more significant to me from a management and a budget standpoint, short-term and long-term, is using the accurate number. So I would argue that regardless of what the intent was of the cumulative approach, because it does changes the number long-term, but it is, everybody increases. To me, it's more significant that we settle on using the accurate number, meaning the actual revenue numbers. Not, we have an ad valorem from county equalization of $50 million and the millage rate is 24 point and change, and that means that we should have 1.1 whatever million dollars in the bank account, and we don't. We only captured $896,000 in 23, right? So to me, it's much more significant to come up with a way that we would use the accurate revenue capture. The resolutions say we will share in the prosperity of the increases of tax capture, not the projected estimated rise of prosperity because the county thinks we're going to be worth this much and we say all these numbers. So it's a very difficult thing because it creates either a retroactive adjustment or we just fund it, and now every year at the end of the year, the first week of January, we just do the math on wherever our base is and the next tranche goes into the pot.
I'm sorry, can you clarify when you're saying ad valorem or you're throwing out some other number? I mean, the money that hits the bank is the money that hits the bank. That's what it should be based on. What are these other numbers? The county gives us like a guess, a best guess, and then we,
Well, I don't think I attached it. These are all the reports that Sonia and I are now experts on.
You guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
We have lots of volunteer
Fascinating.
opportunities. We've had other scouts do great projects for us. We would love. If you have an Eagle Scout project, please keep us in mind. We would love that. The lumberyard is a home run for you, all right? So come find us.
Thanks, guys.
nice, bye.
There's the resolutions. All right, so here's what we're talking. So this was, see how it says taxable value, $46 million?
Yep. Yeah.
captured value of $36 million. These are what they call ad valorem projections, meaning the county comes in and says, we've assessed the value of all of the properties in your district to be worth this much. And based upon your year, these are the projections for what it would be worth. See how these projections of your taxable value? These are not accurate. They're not even close.
Wow.
So why use them?
So you
And
can't
why
use
do
them.
we rely on the?
You can't use them. So there's two resources. So the county, because of Brooks Patterson, has a 3- and 5-year forecasted budget cycle. I can guarantee you that the 3-year forecast is as close as you'll get in the United States to understanding where it is. That, however, as Ms. Stout and I will attest, try to do the annual report off of all of that. It's impossible because what we're talking about, Ms. Campbell, is these reports that say, wait a minute, the current taxable value for the ad valorem pre-real property is 19 million and the non-pre-real property, meaning the commercial, is 27. And if we add those two numbers up, that other page said it was 39. None of it matches, right? So this is the taxable value, the base year, the captured value based upon total millage rates. This number better darn well match with this number, 963,306. So this took Ms. Stout educating me and Joe Young coming and educating me. I consider myself a pretty smart dude. And I think she was even surprised that I was able to get it within 43 cents. Because this number, Ms. Campbell, is, here's the money we capture. We capture 176 from the counties, 195 from our township, the village all in with police and everything else is 496, our community college. So this is what we capture. If we were to go back to what was used as a projection, look at these numbers. These are the revenues. They're just different.
Those
So-
are these are the actuals.
And so what probably needs to happen is they're just, again, it's not to try to figure out who cheats who, is if some point the state says, with all this weird way you guys are doing stuff, we need to look at this closer, we need to be able to say, yeah, we're spot on with what we're doing because we used actual capture numbers, actual revenue numbers to divide this capital fund, because that's the way it's supposed to happen under the law. So, Madam Chair, the only thing I can say tonight is that this entire matter get referred to our budget task force, who's going to serve. You just appointed them as the ad hoc members to the committee. We start on Thursday, deal? We start on Thursday. I run a more detailed report of actual numbers. I'll get what county equalization is showing from their numbers, and we do our best job at it. That report, with you guys going out of town, would get passed to the balance of the ad hoc committee. I think George will be back by then. Teresa never seems to go anywhere. I want to buy her a vacation.
I was out of the country last week, so.
Oh, were you really?
I was.
Oh, that's right, you gave ski lessons somewhere. I saw that. So Madam Chair, that the whole thing get referred. Now, here's the only thing that I would like to at least hear the briefest of discussion as we're belaboring a long meeting, is this an approach of we're going to try to find a way to use actual revenues that calculate this fund or not? I don't even know how to ask it. And, well,
Well, based on the current discussion, I think we have to use, we have to use actual numbers.
Not playing Monopoly.
No.
I think it's important to realize that the resolution also does say future tax increment revenues captured from the DDA TIF, and I'll realize captured taxable values. So we're not playing with projections here when it comes to the amount that's going into the infrastructure fund. We're not playing with projections. It is on captured tax, captured tax monies, captured taxable value. It is the actuals, not projected.
So it
So
equals.
if there's a consensus that our awesome village president is saying, yeah, this is supposed to be actual, that's what I'll take to the committee. We'll run reports that will show both from a year over year and a cumulative. I am going to lean in that committee that, in fairness to our partners, looks to me as an attorney like if I had to litigate it, it's kind of intended that it was supposed to be that way. We'll also do an analysis, a deeper analysis of what that means short-term on the impact of how we would approach budgeting on some of our larger line items. It may not have a huge impact, it may have a huge impact, we'll look at that. But that would be my recommendation, is to move to refer the entire package to the Budget Task Force for a report and recommendation,
Using actual numbers.
using actual numbers.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
We did a motion and it was seconded. And we passed it.
That was for appointing the members
Oh,
to the committee.
sorry.
This is an,
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to refer the, I don't even know what it's called, Village Capital Improvement Fund, right, Section 8, to the ad hoc committee.
using
Captured numbers.
actual.
Yes, using actual captured numbers. Sorry, I didn't write a motion.
Did that cover
Is
everything?
that correct?
Okay.
That's fine.
Can I just make one other comment? I know you keep talking about Thursday. I have encouraged the village members of this ad hoc committee to not start meeting, because I know they were ready to like jump the gun and start meeting together and everything, and to, honor the spirit of the joint committee, to not do like, hey, we're going to meet and we're going to get all of our stuff to come to this meeting, because we want it to be a collaborative process and not, hey, we have prepped our stuff to come to the table, we've prepped our stuff to come to the table, and let's just go at it. But as a collaborative process, that it is a joint committee. So obviously you have your budgetary committee, do your budgetary committee stuff, but also just encourage you to preserve the heart and intent of the committee, that it is a joint committee, not a, we're doing our work over here, we're doing our work over here, and then we'll come to the table ready to do battle.
Do you have a time frame on that?
I know, so I'm not on that committee. It is George and Mike and Stan, and George is out of town for, I think, 2 more weeks, and then he's back in town.
He's back March 7th.
March 7th, there you go.
All right, so I'm out next week.
I'll be gone the week of,
Sam,
I'll be
you
back
around?
March, I'll be gone the week of March 1st to the 8th.
So you're
So-
saying we shouldn't meet on?
Yeah,
No, we should,
No,
Should sit
So-
down.
we
so
should
you can,
meet
I'm
because.
just saying, do the things that are relevant to your budget task force committee as a budget task force, but when it comes to like pushing into what this committee, that joint committee should do to, come to the table together in a collaborative way that's not like, oh, I've prepped all this. Does that make sense?
I have trust. I have trust in the board
Yeah.
that they're going to do things in the correct
Right.
manner. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I think we're
Right.
good. They've been given direction.
Yeah.
We've had people voted into position. So all along, we've been asking the village to partner with us and please meet and have collaboration. So I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we have the right heart, the right spirit here moving forward. So now that we've had a motion and a second and some discussion.
Sorry,
second?
who was second?
I don't think anybody.
I
Second.
said Campbell. Okay, Lorraine,
Okay,
thank you.
now it's second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
But we're still meeting on Thursday.
Thursday. Well, we have our accreditation process,
Yeah.
of which the big national directors come in to do it. So
Right.
lots of work on Thursday.
And that is Kathy LaPlante.
Kathy
She is the
LaPlante,
one that's actually
yeah.
going to be doing it.
Yeah, spread the word. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, now we're moving on to item number B, Lumberyard Progress Report, page 65 in your packet.
Madam Chair, just quickly, we made a commitment to preparing and posting progress reports so that we and the public could kind of keep abreast of it. It includes a narrative of what's going on. The big thing that's going on is you've seen that the site's getting quite cleaner.
Yeah.
There's 2
Yes.
big piles of debris left. They would have been probably gone today, but for the wind and the 10 degrees. But they'll be gone this week. The site will get buttoned up. A couple of interesting anomalies in the site that we kind of knew about. The president of the company who's been managing this on site indicated they found a filled-in void somewhat where the train track is, towards the end, and he's like, we can't figure out what that is. And I said, well, that was where the very first coal dump was from the Michigan Central Railroad in 1907, so it's very likely you just found what they filled in He said, well, it's a bunch of debris and stuff, so I hope we didn't ruin anything. I'm like, no, you didn't, but it's kind of cool that it was there. It's very cool. So the site's getting clean. The demo's coming in on budget, which is good. There may be a small change order. You'll note that there's no silt and sediment fencing up yet, even though we went to the laborious effort of getting the county to issue that permit, because we're not having them rip concrete yet. There isn't any foundations, like there's no basements, that kind of thing. It's all slab and what they call shed wall foundation. If you're familiar with that, it's basically getting your barns up off the ground a little bit. They're going to rip the concrete when weather allows a little more, but it also allows them to put silt fence in for the long-term sediment control. The reason for that is it would have been a change order of about $19,000, and I said, why? We don't need to do that just quite yet. So the site's going to be clean and smooth and safe, and if that darn fence doesn't keep falling over, it'll be secure. We have a crew of wonderful ladies from the community that are caring for what we think is just 2 of the cats that are in the lumberyard that are left. Mr. Caruso stepped in today as we were talking about, we'll probably need a barn cat or 2 eventually anyway, so we'll see how all that works out. But for right now, from a project standpoint, the demo is happening. Now, at our last meeting, you all authorized the release of requests for proposals. Again, in trying to manage the fact that the original all-in cost factors just for the public project that you all did the bond financing on were upwards of 6 million, 6.2 if we really went all in. My numbers when I started the job was more like 8 million, and we have 2.7 in the bank. So we're trying to manage this project in a way that we can get to those public-private partnerships that will monetize it more. So we wanted to get architectural, not to do site concept drawings and all that added expense, but just to do construction spec drawings for the barn, for the coal supply canopy that's going to be the trailhead, and for our office that we're going to save now. We had walkthroughs. I talked to a dozen different firms that I know up to the last day before. 3 of those contacted me and said that they were going to bow out and not submit. Part of it was because of the complexity of the engineering on the old barn, on the main barn. I've got to get more detail on that. What did come in, I apologize, was attached to this big 248-page packet, in large part because of these, this section of the report. So these bids came in. A big applause to our good clerk who received them and processed them with Lindsay, her deputy clerk. 83-1, 249, 153, a wide range. I mean, to go from someone that interpreted what we wanted at 83 grand to 250 grand means that there was either a defect in what we were asking for, or they just didn't understand how targeted we were trying to be. Either way, as I said 4 months ago when we started down this road, finding a contractor that would do the design build aspect of the barn, the office, and that's easy. We'd find those all day long. The barn is a struggle. And so the 4 entities in Michigan that are barn restoration companies have all, I mean, they're nice, they've passed. They're like, it's just not the kind of project that we can take on. It is what it is. So right now, I put the next steps in the report. Here's some more pictures of what's out there. If anybody ever wants to get out there, just stop by, call. We could take a look at it. On Thursday for our national accreditation work, when we do the short tour in our downtown, it's supposed to be nice but cool. So we are planning to stop here. I will have a heater in the main office. We will talk about what we're doing at the lumberyard with Kathy LaPlante. Well, you can read between the lines of that strategy, Madam Chair. So she can see firsthand what we're trying to do here and what we are going to do here. So that's the report. The motion would be to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have a quick question. Is that somewhere posted on our website so people can look at that?
Yeah, I'll pull it up in a minute as we're wrapping up, Mr. Caruso. We have a page dedicated to the lumberyard. On the page, we have sections that are plans and diagrams, photo essay, or photo libraries, document libraries, all of our environmental reports. And right on the front page of that, we've got January progress report. Now we'll have February progress report.
Cool.
We'll have March progress report. It's all right there. So very easy to get to on the clickable.
That's on the Lake Orion DDA website.
Lake Orion, yeah, downtownlakeorion.org.
I just pulled it up. It's right here.
Oh,
They're
perfect, thank you. Nice. So in case that's back from there, so me trying to get it all loaded.
Moving on to item number C, request for proposals and architectural services, beginning on page 69.
Madam Chair, if you did take the time to go through these, they are very interesting. Just the qualifications of people, the way they're looking at things, how they would approach it. It very well might be that one of our development partners from a design capacity is in one of these three proposals. These were received last Wednesday. As the memo stated, I always like to put in our board packet that our compliance procedure, so if anybody ever asks, well, did you follow your rules? You're darn right we did. We did this exactly right. And again, thanks to the clerk's office for stepping in, letting proposals be received here. We did receive a proposal late. I'll send notice to them that I'm super excited they sent the proposal in, but it was late and it was untimely. So what is before you on this agenda item is not to do anything. I'm not recommending we select any of these. They did not come back in a way that was targeted just to get construction spec drawings done, particularly for the barn. But we're not going to lose the opportunity. What I would suggest, Madam Chair, is that we table this matter for 30 days to our next meeting. By moving to table it, it doesn't go away. It still says operative. And refer this back to my office. I'm going to seek 2 volunteers from the board. Ms. Crusoe, you and I talked about that. We could do that tonight. It doesn't have to be formalized. I'd like to do a little bit more interviewing of particularly 2 of these firms. One of the firms is a Michigan-based firm, 2 are Michigan-based firms. They specialize in Amish post and beam reconstruction, and I'd like to find out why it was $153,000. I'm just being honest. It's the
Minimus or?
It's the Nurture. No, I'm sorry, the Faber Design Company.
Faber.
Good group. It's just too much money for what we are asking for right now, but we've got to figure out bringing it back on a different recommendation. So I'd like to have this tabled until March and allow us to work on it a little bit. It may result in March that we come back with a motion to reject these outright and to resubmit requests for proposals in a different way, or it might come back with a recommendation of something that was found in the process. So that's, right now, be a motion to table.
Make a motion to table the bid tabulations for the Lake Orion Lumberyard project.
That's fine.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number D, 2025 strategic plan, schedule final review, page, I believe it's 227.
Madam Chair, you all did awesome with Christina Shepard, who facilitated our strategic planning. Christina did an even better job of getting our thoughts and ideas and all those boards and everything else into this draft plan. It's actually 52 pages long. The copy I have here is the double slide page. I know all of you might have looked at it. What's before you tonight is, one is a big applause to all of you. This is very, very important what we're doing. The organizational committee met today. Elena chaired that. She did a phenomenal job. And we talked about not just refreshing, but practicing and refining our on-the-street speech of who we are, what we're doing, and how we do it. This strategic priority plan really starts to beckon towards that. It talks about what we identified as our current SWOT analysis, what we're moving, the metrics. And here's what I would just briefly go forward, and then what the request is tonight is to set a date for Christina to come back and lead us through this and then adopt some form of it. Her recommendation is we change our transformational strategies with Main Street, and that we call it a lakeshore economy and community building. Right now, as you saw in well, my report later will show that you adopted transformational strategies that Main Street wants to that were real just core economic development, placemaking, community engagement. You have to have Christina walk you through this. I could, I promised her I wouldn't, even though I'm very excited about it. As she walks through all of these different elements of what she's talking about, it's not about tourism like we're going to become a tourist town. We're talking about we are a tourist economy, and that certainly goes with our heritage. It goes with what we're trying to do at the lumberyard. It talks about us becoming a destination for the people that come and are here. We call ourselves we're living as a vacation. Why not actually build off that? It's actually pretty cool what she's putting together. So what's before you tonight is not to go through this other than this brief thing. We did have a memo of hers that kind of assigns homework. The homework is review this and get it going. What I need, Madam Chair, is some consensus of when we could set that date to have her come back. It sounds like we've got a couple members that are going to be gone until March. It can be in March, it's fine. We got our accreditation, we adopted that, all of the homework for that. But we should look at somewhere in March to do this. And it would be, again, probably something that we would schedule maybe even back in the conference room at the church. That worked out really well there for her to come back. So we can do it one of two ways. We can say, Mr. Gibb, why don't you send out a doodle poll? But I wanted to keep the momentum of it by bringing it tonight. So, sorry, wishy-washy motion or agenda item, but here it is.
Just for personal reasons, could we do it, make like the end of March?
Yeah.
Spring break is 23rd through 29th.
I'll probably be leaving out of the country again on the 24th or 25th, so the Monday of that week.
So that's Monday or Tuesday of the last week in March.
Yeah, I could probably meet Monday or Tuesday.
23rd is Sunday,
Yeah.
24th is
Monday would
Monday.
probably be safe for, if we just have a village council meeting that day. But-
Just.
But before that Monday is safe, I have to book my flight. I'm flying to the other side of the world, so I'll let you know when I book my flight. So, I have to see the dates for arrival and how that impacts it.
So possibly that Monday?
I can,
All right.
Monday the what?
24th.
I can't do Monday because I work on Monday, but I can be there in spirit. I work till 6, 9 to 6.
Don't you?
9 to 1, 2 to 6.
Thought I knew your schedule.
Yeah, it used to be that way.
Okay.
how about a doodle poll? That would be
Let's
great.
do doable. So end of March, we'll pick a handful of dates and send it out, and we'll do our best to get the group together. The committees will be invited, other council people that have attended will be invited. So same concept, and we'll get that out. So Madam Chair, no actions required on this agenda item.
Okay. So moving on now to item number E, budget amendment.
Madam Chair, easy one. What's before you is DT is a wonderful organization here in Michigan. We woefully underestimated our budget, even the changes that we made in the last minute. So I'm asking that we move $4,700. We have a capital outlay account for trail extension that we put $9,000 in for our budget because we anticipated possibly doing some pre-trail work as part of the lumberyard. Trust me, we're not going to get there. So I'm asking that we move $4,700 from GL 248-260-921-000, or I'm sorry, from 248-730-975-011, which is the trail extension, to GL 248-260-921-000, which is our street light account. That 4,700 should get us there. I attached for your light reading later the monumental amount of DTE bills that Sonia keeps handing me and we keep paying. So it's all her fault.
I have a question. Wasn't there some discussion about which light pole, what are we paying for?
We're working on that.
We're working on it, okay.
Yeah,
Because DTE wasn't really sure,
we're working. on it.
right? Okay.
I don't know how to tell you any other than we're working on it.
Okay.
I will tell you that, I'll say it publicly, we'll get another for you. The EV charging stations produce us no appreciable benefit from an economic standpoint. Even if we were to adjust all the pricing, it would be a wash at best. It costs us about $300 to $500 a month through that meter. It does look like the intersection lights for the Broadway Flint intersection are in some way pulled through. This is why we're working on it. It's like, even DT is like, it shouldn't be this way. Well, you got to figure it out, guys, is what we're doing. So we're working on it. So this would get us so that our budget's good, so I don't get hollered at by our good clerk treasurer, and I keep paying the bill. So a motion to do that budget amendment.
Make a motion to approve, which you stated, moving the money from the GL 248-730-975-011 trail extension by $4,700 and increase GL 248-260-921-000 by $4,700.
Support.
We have a roll call, please, Sonia?
Chairperson Burgess,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Caruso,
Yes.
President Rutt,
Yes.
Board Member Medina,
Yes.
Secretary Laurent,
Yes.
Board Member Campbell,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. You know, I just want to make the comment, though, with all of this investigating in regard to the electric bill, we really do, and we had mentioned it previously at another board meeting, but we need to increase the cost of usage for those charging stations down there. If it's a wash, okay, but we shouldn't be out of pocket incurring $500 every month for that.
No, not for people's own.
Just as a quick aside, we're just talking to State Electric out of Grand Blanc, who's one of the surplus providers for
Are you
the,
talking to Mike?
State Electric out of Grand Blanc is one of the surplus site providers for the state. Dwayne is a close colleague of our group here, and he's looking at whether they should be swapped out and go through a different provider, and they would turn into a revenue generator. It's who we're partnered with out of California, and it's a mess. It's not a good situation. So we're looking at all those options right now. It's just a priority. It's like you got to get to it. Yeah. So
Is it used? I never
it is
seen a car.
used. Yeah,
Yes,
it is
they are
used.
used.
That's why it's $300 to $500. People are using them. It's just we're
They're
just
used.
losing money on it. That's all.
Although I will say, very, very often, when we have a huge parking problem downtown, those spots are empty, and there's no place to park.
I love it though, because I have my minivan that's electric and I always find a
My
spot.
van is not electric, and I park there, and I park
The
there.
poster child for.
I love it.
for all.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
There'll be no parking spots, and guess what? I can plug in my
Yeah,
van.
yeah.
It was all.
But I'm just saying, I can't tell you how often we're packed downtown, there's no place to park, and those spots are empty. And it just, I'm sorry, it irritates me when people are trying to
Well,
get
we
to my
see,
business.
we hear you and we hear her.
Yes, I love it.
I have an older minivan.
Okay, moving on. Number 9, reports, resolutions, and recommendations. A, Executive Director's Report.
So just briefly, you all have a good sense of what my office has been doing. The big thing is our accreditation process. So I attached to the report some things I put together to submit to the national team. This kind of comes out a little bit out of our training that talks about how we've transitioned our staffing, that our new budget approach has done what we've just talked about tonight, how we're really attacking that, how we've renewed our facade grant program, some other things. This is just a brief outline of kind of where we're going and what our committees are doing. All of this is designed. This is what you all adopted when Molly was still director for our transformational strategies. We're not losing sight of those, but we're just kind of moving forward. And then building prosperity, reinvest in a historic tomorrow is what Elena and the team today talked about, how to really kind of refine our street smart mission and what we're doing. So this was given to the national, as part of our accreditation submittal process and what we've been working on. And then our website now has pictures of all of you, which is grand. We talked about that before, and what we're doing. So our accreditation we should be in good shape, but all of you know that it's a process. So Thursday is a reminder, Thursday's all day. We'll re-email you the agenda. Some, all, please invite a friend. I'll be texting people tonight and in the morning that are good friends of the program to say, make some time and get there. The big news at the end of the day is Kathy LaPlante, who's really one of the founders of the program. She's in town. She will be the one conducting our review on Thursday. We have said that our lumberyard and the 7520, all of this goes into when Main Street comes to Detroit in 2027, that Lake Orion is on the stage receiving the Great America Main Street Award in our hometown. So it all starts with getting really geared towards everything we do right now is leading to that stage. So love Molly, but she submitted, just like the minutes from a meeting, is we're changing the way that we present ourselves. This is why we talked about our pitch, everything else. So things are good. And so for my report, we're really focusing on that. I am working on the budget, the service agreements. We did the snow agreement tonight, which is great. At your next meeting, the service agreement approach will be ready to present for our budget task force people. You'll see the draft of that on Thursday, hook or by crook. This is no secret. I'm not trying to keep it a secret. It is a service agreement that identifies 3 categories of basic service, which would be basic services that we have a flat fee that everybody just pitches in. So when we need to have corn stalks moved into downtown, we don't have to ask how much it costs. The DPW just comes and helps. They're basic things like that. Move the cement blocks for the other things. It's basic things. They're enhanced services that are more identified on work order basis, and then they're accelerated services that are more immediate project need services that are cost estimated. And so that service agreement is going, I told Wes, his budget line will likely go up in our budget, not because we're going to give him all that money, but there's a possibility that we need him to do all those things and he would earn that and more. It's not like a carrot, but it is a little bit because it helps us refine how we're doing this. So that service agreement will be, should be pretty much draft ready to go from our end. I would echo Ms. Rutt's comments. This is in the spirit of what I believe we've built in the last 90 days of these joint working sessions and what we did in our trainings, to say we all can just do it better, right? So that's coming. Snow removal we fixed, and to-dos and more. Here's the things that I'm conscious of. We are not doing a good enough job collectively on sponsorship. We went into a save the DDA mode and did it. And when I look back before those days and now, we don't have big sponsorship booklets. We don't have all that stuff. We got to get back there, and we will. But just so you all know, it's kind of this gnawing priority that's coming to the forefront for me, for my work. And I know that's Janet's principal feature, but she's doing a lot too. And so sponsorships. I have to get with you, Madam Chair. To be accredited, we're technically supposed to do reviews of staff. I'm going to do Janet's soon. Emily's not been here long enough really to get a review. We'll do an annual. I want to work with you and with Sam on Janet's, and then whatever you want to do with me, you kick me to the curb, whatever it is. But we do need to have some record of annual reviews. And that last thing that's not on here of what is being planned out is with the service agreement. I am talking to Wes quite a bit, trying to refine what that is. In March, we will be back with how we want a seasonal part-time person or persons to work, so that we're not relying on the DPW who has water issue. They have too much on the plate, so that day-to-day things like watering the flowers and moving things around, doing that thing will be back through a part-time like we did last year. And we got to buy tires for the four-wheeler. So there's all that will come back in March, and that's my report. Unless there's questions, it'd be a motion to receive and file.
More or less just a comment, but I think having that person or persons who will be hired to help with the flowers and watering and things like that, I think that's really critical because of the symposium that is coming to Lake Orion. That is a really big deal for the township. And if you all remember their presentation, the majority of the photos in there was not of the township, it was of the village. And Mr. Barnett, our township supervisor, he also informed all of us that he was bringing that whole symposium to the downtown. So let's not lose sight of that. And so I know some people say, well, why are you spending money on flowers or on watering flowers? But you have to understand, again, it's the promotion opportunities for our communities is huge, and what they could bring to us, the grant opportunities, I mean, so let's really, and I don't like to, let's keep looking forward, I guess. There's a much bigger picture out here that we're working towards, and so we need to be mindful of that when we start thinking of these things. We can't have our executive director running out there with, the water bucket, and we can't have our friends over here yelling at Janet because I gave you flowers and they're dying, and then we can't have the township supervisor saying, hey, the symposium is coming, what's happening downtown. So I'm just, let's keep in the forefront of our mind that we have some tremendous opportunities coming, and we need to be prepared for them.
Could I add to that? Also, the volunteering too, and having even a list of things that volunteers can do to help with the downtown. Because it is, making the downtown aesthetically, beautiful is really important. I mean, I think about all the people who come and take their pictures downtown. They're not going to come and take pictures downtown in a dingy-looking downtown area. And when they come and take their pictures downtown, what are they doing? They're going to stop and get a coffee. They're going to pop into shops and stuff like that. So, yeah, making an attractive downtown is really important.
Well, just a little sidebar here. The other day, I was just walking through town with coffee, and there was actually a photographer, a bride-to-be, a husband-to-be, and all of her her bridesmaids. They were talking about how could they change the look of the gazebo for photos for their wedding, and could they bring in flowers, and maybe could they paint it, and so all these things were happening, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's a lost opportunity there. That could really end up being something huge. So I was getting excited. Love new opportunities.
Can I add two more real quick?
Yes.
There's a new grant program through Main Street, but sponsored by GM, that is only for GM communities. It's up to $60,000. 5 communities nationwide are going to get chosen. We're going to do our best to get it in. It's a 3-week turnaround that started last week. I'll be talking to the chief and others about all of our discussion through Mr. Caruso's effort to re-up the power hour into our downtown lowdown. About traffic calming is the focus of the grant, and so what better way to talk about traffic calming than if we could get $60,000 to start the chief's effort of doing temporary decorative-based safety within our downtown. So we'll go for it if we can get it done. That one's going to be a reach, but we did it on the other big grant, so we'll see. So that one's going. And then a big shout out, the downtown lowdown is getting real good traction, Dr. Caruso. It's getting really good traction. So this Thursday is the accreditation. That's more important, no offense. But next Thursday is the last Thursday of the month. Remember, the fourth Thursday of every month is the lowdown. So we're going to be rehashing this discussion on events and what to do. I'll be attending, this is something, Mr. Leonard, for your benefit, I'll be attending with the Lions Club, who's meeting with the village about the Jubilee tomorrow. It'll be the first meeting that is a scale of a new approach from the village of how to bring events in, so cost, logistics, all of that. I'm very enthused with our chief and how he'll approach that. So we'll be going after that grant, knock on wood, so I would add that to the report. I don't think so. It's a Lions Club thing. You're not part of the Jubilee, are you?
No, that's,
Yeah. So, but lots going on. But the lowdown, Sam, is great. People are really already taking to it.
First one was very successful. You guys did a great job of presenting it and having the chief there was nice.
Now that's all I have.
Moving on to the Assistant Director's report.
Receive and file.
Motion to receive and file?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now. Begin.
So just real quickly, Janet's not here. You're not Janet. Janet is going to be at a training at 8 o'clock in the morning with Kathleen LaPlante and needed to prep for that. And I said, you're not coming to our meeting? And she's like, what, really? I'm like, no, you're going to go and get ready. So one is she has been over here a lot. Snow doesn't matter. And she had an opportunity to be part of that tomorrow, so I told her to go be part of that tomorrow. So that's why she's not here, right? So, but she's been super busy. What they're getting ready is Restaurant Week, which is coming up. Her and Emily have been doing an excellent job of getting that put together. The St. Patty's Day pregame with Oxford, just a reminder, the trolley is broken, so there is no trolley. But we will be having check-in at our own Irish Tavern, so that event. Tickets are already selling, T-shirts are getting purchased, and so it's always a nice, fun event. So her and Emily are fast at that. They've been after the social. She got a new volunteer that she went out and recruited that has event planning expertise in her background and social media planning in her background. And guess what she's doing for us? She's doing social media and event planning background. So it's great. Janet's very enthused about that, but it's just, it's a lot. Her report's in the file. She's been after it. She started the year very strong for us. It's quick to wear out doing what she does, particularly when it's snowstorms and all that. But the great news is if you were at the Ice Fest, what a huge success this year. It was in large part her idea of working with Rotary to combine the golf tournament with the Ice Fest, and what a home run that was, if you were around. We did have a couple of little elves that made sure the sidewalks were salted that day, because if you recall, we got a snow ice event overnight, and but everybody cheered, and it was a great event. We got great photos and great opportunities from that.
It's nice that the carvings are still out.
Carvings are still
Yeah, but
out.
still there.
Those that didn't get one, custom flooring. How many people did you have in your building that day?
We had 160
That's awesome.
actually come through our store.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's awesome.
Awesome.
So the assistant director report is grand. Emily is still working flex for us. She works 8 hours or 10 hours as needed, 3 to 4 days. We flex her on purpose. She's just starting to show me some of her artwork. She is a very talented young lady. And so she's coming into her own a little bit. It's taking a little bit of time. Her start as she came right into events, man. If you remember when she started, her first event was, I think, Halloween, and her second event was Sing and Stroll, and she like stood in the cold, man. If you were there for the trolley rides and the Polar Express story, she stood out. I mean, God love her, but she's falling into her own. She's going to start taking over the financial reports and the BSNA work. I know that Sonia's very happy about that I can get out of that business. But I'll be overseeing all that. She's doing great. So if she was here, she would have said all that and more, but we still need to receive and file what she's put in the packet.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the assistant director.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, board comments and training. Begin with you, Sally.
Elena, don't take away my parking spot. No, I do think that there is a bigger impact. Honestly, I don't use it obviously that much if I'm not coming downtown, but I do think it helps the environment as well. So I don't think I mean, obviously we don't want to lose money on it, but if we're, if we're making sure that sounds good. But I also wanted to add with the Ice Fest, I know that it was a big success that was kind of on our promotions committee, what we were talking about, like how can we partner with some of the other businesses or organizations that come downtown, and it aligned perfectly. It makes sense, right? It's the ice golf, it's the Ice Fest. The one thing I think that was a little tricky that I didn't even think through is that Ice Fest is more family oriented, and ice golf is definitely kind of like a partying atmosphere. So we're going to try to stack it, I think, a little bit next year of like having the families come down for activities a little later in the day. But it was really great. I think it was a good turnout.
As you say that, I'm thinking about the bar afterwards.
Exactly.
I'm excited that we're moving on and trying to get this 75-25 going, and look forward to working with the team from the village.
Thank you.
Ditto.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the elves that were out there on ice golf morning, I know, trying to make sure everything was safe, and I know those elves were you, and I think you. I don't know, did you have help? Was there somebody else, or was it just you?
You know, one is our DPW worked late in the night that night because
Right.
they got snow event. And
Yes, so they
taking-
were taking-
and it was
right.
a beautiful sunny morning, which was great for the whole event. And so they were kind of gone. I didn't want to call Wes and say, hey, could you come back? And so we were doing it, and I called a couple people, but most people were golfing. They were part of the event. So Mr. Barnett, our supervisor, called his parks department, and they sent over a truck with assault, and they were able to get at least a couple blocks of it, which was a big help, which was great.
Nice.
Well, listen, we all take pride in our downtown, and whether it's me or anybody else, everybody does. Y'all stop and do what you have to do. It made a difference to
Right.
just make it right. You know,
Yes,
that's all.
yes.
So
Well,
it's
thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
It didn't go unnoticed. The ice sculptures are amazing. I was thrilled with my ice sculpture. It's up by Wine Social if anybody wants to go look at the cookie, the cookie that's in the ice sculpture. The LO Lowdown was amazing. I was super excited about the turnout and the engagement that we got from the businesses. And I think you could tell that the businesses were really excited to be there. And I think too, to have a voice and to speak up, you know, a lot of people really engaged, right, in discussion there. And I thought that that was really important. And I have talked to several business owners who were really bummed they couldn't make it. They really, really, really wanted to. It just, you know, was a timing thing, right? You can't get everybody. And then the last thing, I am so sorry that I will not be there Thursday for the Main Street because I will be at the ice cream convention. Giving a presentation on actually scooping up sweet success with community engagement and collaboration. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, so I'm sorry I won't be there.
I kind of want to be at this ice cream fest.
It's very fun.
Just saying. You get ice cream samples and all that stuff. But looking forward, I see so much potential and I see so many possibilities for collaboration, for good things for our community that I'm very excited about. Projects, you know, everything from the lumberyard to the committee's work on the 75-25 and the things that can be accomplished. So I just see a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities that I'm really excited for because I think, you know, we have the right people here to make those things happen. So looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
Thanks. I just want to say that I'm really looking forward to our reaccreditation on Thursday. I know every time that they come, they're always amazed at what our community is doing and that we're kind of forward thinkers. So I think our lumberyard project and the collaboration and partnership with the village is, I mean, I really feel like they're going to be just impressed. Because last time they came, you know, every situation was so much different. So, I mean, there's been a lot of effort really put into rebuilding, and so I'm excited about that. The other thing I want to say is in regard to the lowdown that we had, that attendance, all of the business owners that were there, when I heard them say that the content was worth their time, that was a powerful statement. Because they were saying, first of, I could hear some of them saying, well, should I really just go back to work now or what, right? And then at the end, they were like, I'm so glad that I was here because what I learned was really valuable to me. And so kudos to everyone that participated in that and to those who organized and orchestrated that. Great job. I want to say that I don't know if Janet is going to watch this or not, but I do want to say a big shout out to Janet. Because she has been busting her tail feathers. And she has been working long hours, and, you know, she drives 1 hour one way just to get here, and with all of the crazy weather that we've had, it's taken her much longer. And some of our meetings that we say will be, you know, 15 minutes, we're talkers, they always last much longer. And she just sits there and, you know, does what she needs to do, even though it's going to be a delay for her getting home. So I just want her to know that we acknowledge that, we appreciate that about her, and we got to figure out how to make sure that maybe make some adjustments on those weeks so it's not such a heavy load for her. And I want to say kudos to our executive director. This has been a very long and laborious process. Not anything that we thought that it would be. We knew it would be challenging, but we didn't really think it was going to be like this. So thank you so much for coming in and just saying it's another day and we're going to work until we get it done. And so I really appreciate that. And Sonia, I really appreciate you and how you help us stay on track, and when we kind of get off lane, you gently, push us back, and so I really appreciate that. And the last thing I want to say. Give me a second. I was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and a week from Thursday, I have surgery. It will be followed up with daily radiation. I don't know to what extent. It all depends on what they find in the lymph nodes and pathology and so forth. So I'm just letting you know I will not be here next month. I appreciate your prayers. And I really appreciate everyone's commitment to us moving forward. And so I'm looking forward to good things. Our next regular meeting is going to be on March 18th, which is my birthday, by the way. And then we need a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.